Welcome to Encouraging Wellness, where we shed light on the plethora of holistic healing and wellness methods so you can give yourself the power to ask why and become bigger than the condition you are dealing with or the illness you are currently fighting. Join Pamela Wirth as she sits down with doctors, medical experts, healthcare practitioners, and those with unique healing stories to dissect groundbreaking practices that combine traditional Western medicine with alternative modalities. Hear conversations that empower you to go beyond hurtful stigmas, outdated practices, and unnecessary labels, guiding you towards a healthier and happier you. Here, we highlight your true worth and help unleash your inner courage. Now your host, Pamela.
Hi, this is Pamela from the Encouraging Wellness podcast. And today I have David Benjamin, CEO and founder of Healthy, Wild, and Free. Is that right? Did I do that right?
Yep. Well, yeah, it's Healthy, Wild, Free. It used to be the and, but the and was taken out.
Okay.
All the same.
Well, it's great. And I love everything that you're doing in terms of benefits of health and wellness and really getting into the gut. And it sounds like you've got a lot of healing stories and a lot of people in your life that you've helped. And tell us a little bit about you and how you got into health and wellness.
Sure. So many years ago, when I was a young boy, I'm much older now. I have the little crow lines and, a beard and all that now. So I've aged tremendously since. My mother had stage 4 colon cancer back in 2001. And during that time, I was 11 years old and we didn't think she had a chance at making it. So it was very difficult for my siblings and me. I have one brother and 2 sisters. And during that time, thankfully, she connected with Olivia Newton-John's husband, who was a treasure hunter in the Amazon rainforest. And he brought these different herbs and plant extracts back from the Amazon after almost dying in the Amazon himself. And he connected with my mom at a health conference and found out she had cancer and said, hey, start taking these herbs. They'll help keep you strong and healthy. So she did that. And over about a period of a year, along with diet and some emotional health things as well, she fully recovered and is cancer-free to this day. So that was a hugely impactful story in my life. And then, so that really showed me, I guess, the upside of holistic health and wellness. And then the other impactful event that happened during my childhood was my older brother was actually born with a birth defect because of Accutane. So my mom took Accutane, and I think as a senior in high school, and my brother's right hand didn't form properly. So his middle finger only grew halfway and the other finger is kind of like curved in because of that. So, this is something he has to live with for life as an after effect of Accutane. And so I kind of saw growing up like holistic medicine, pharmaceutical medicine, the power of holistic medicine and plants and the damage that, pharmacopoeia or pharmakia can do. So that really shaped my perspective growing up. And, that really led me into kind of pursuing, health on my own and recognizing that this is something that, I control my biology. I control what I put in it. I control what's in my immediate environment around me. And if I can alter or improve my biology, why wouldn't I? I have the choice, I have the option. So I'm going to make empowering choices to do so. So that really kind of set me off on a journey to pursue this in not only my personal life, but my career as well.
So super cool. First of all, what kind of herbs did your mom take with stage 4 colon cancer that helped her so much?
Great question. So they were all Amazonian for the most part. I think there's some Chinese herbs in there as well. But Una de Gato was one of them, or that's cat's claw in English, translated from Spanish. Sangre de Drago, which is dragon's herb in English. An amazing tree sap from Peru or South America. Camu berry, which was the richest source of vitamin C in the world, but it's now number 2 because I think some Australian fruit actually just surpassed that. But yeah, just a variety, Chancapiedra, different herbs from the Amazon rainforest. I know there is some Chinese herbs in there as well, but it's mostly, Amazonian herbs. And it's interesting because when you look at the pharmaceutical industry as a whole, and you look at all these synthetic drugs, they are synthesized from Amazonian plants. 3% of Amazonian plants have been researched for medicinal potential. And out of that 3%, I think it's 33%. Don't quote me on this, but I'm quite sure this is correct. 33% of pharmaceutical drugs have a synthetically derived, version of that plant in drug form. So if we just researched 10% of the Amazon rainforest, we would have a natural plant that grows from the earth that is mostly side effect free. If there are side effects, I hate the phrase side effects because what is a side effect? It's really just an effect, but you got to soften it if you're big pharma, soften the blow. But if we study more of those plants, there's really something for everything from nature, and pharmaceutical companies know this, but obviously they synthesize it because synthesizing is what they have intellectual property on that they can patent and sell. So there's
Yeah.
a lot of potential gains there.
No, that's cool. A lot of my journey came from when I first met this neurologist that told me that to heal my son, I needed to fix his gut. And through the gut, it travels up through the brain and the immune system. And it really is all interconnected, as well as the power of plants that can cross the blood-brain barrier and get rid of any infection that may have crossed the blood-brain barrier. In our case, she was talking a lot about turmeric and frankincense and oregano and olive leaf extract and all these really incredible plants. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing with fermentation and what that actually, a lot of people hear about fermented food and the gut, but tell us a little bit about what's really drawn your journey and what's working for you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so it started when I was 19 or 20, and I realized that, when I was in middle school and high school, I had acne on and off. And my mom took Accutane, and I didn't want to go that route, obviously, and she knew that as well at that point. So I started, understanding that fermented foods and drinks were really helpful for gut health, and I started experimenting with these things, and it really helped. So in my early 20s, I actually started making YouTube videos sharing this, digestive health, metabolic flexibility, fermented foods, fiber, enzymes, all these different things, sharing this with people to say, hey, look, if you heal your gut health, your skin will heal and clear up. And I helped thousands of people. The channel to this day is still online and has millions of views across the videos, and was tremendously impactful on mostly teenagers' lives. And it was just a rewarding experience. So I kind of got tired of talking about skin health and gut health. So then I started Healthy Wild Free. I did a podcast for a while where I interviewed experts on health and wellness, everything from physical health, emotional health, gut health, all that kind of stuff. And then, which leads me to Fermentation Method, which my sister and I were, our mom being in the health and wellness kind of space as well and understanding this, we decided, why don't we do something where we can empower people to have healthier guts and do it from home and really take the power back into their hands. We all know that if we go to the store, we can get GT's kombucha or something like that, but it's like, over $4 a kombucha now. And with inflation, it's kind of crazy if you look at the math and you create a big gallon of kombucha on your own. It's kind of a night and day difference. So we decided to put something together called the Fermentation Method. And basically, it really just educates people on how to ferment foods and drinks both from home, and essentially how to turn your kitchen into a probiotic factory. So taking probiotics, understanding how they work, and understanding how you can multiply them with foods and drinks to get more bacterial potential. So the benefit of that is you get more probiotics over time, because these probiotics grow within the drink or the food source. But then the diversity of those probiotics is great as well. So if you take kimchi and sauerkraut, for example, kimchi, because it has more ingredients, has more of a range of probiotics that do different things in the body. Sauerkraut is still great, but they just have different benefits. So it's good to have more, biodiversity in the gut, because different bacteria will fight other strains of bacteria or pathogens within the body and kind of immunomodulate in different ways to, get the immune system lined up properly. So it's been a really cool journey, and we are really kind of just starting to get this out there and share it with the world. But it's been really rewarding, and we just want to inspire people to, be in their kitchen, have control over their health, and know that process through and through.
So I love that. Some people don't really like the taste of fermentation or fermented things, particularly kids. Do you have any suggestions on how to make things that are not necessarily full of sugar, but are still tasty, or how to hide them in things that might be more savory? Or do you have any thoughts around that?
That is a great question. I love that, because I think one of the challenges with anything to do with health, not just fermented foods, but any healthier foods, is how do we incorporate delicious flavor and taste so that it's easily accepted and just is a tremendous experience for anyone enjoying it, so that they actually adopt it, because you want that experience in both ways. So there's a few things there. The sour and fermented, sort of flavor profiles, especially with like sauerkraut and kimchi, there's not a whole lot you can do there. You can, ferment like beets or turnips or different things and kind of create different flavor profiles that might be more applicable to someone's palate. But you can also, like, for example, and this is probably a better way to start, is with the drinks, kombucha and kefir. With those types of things, you can flavor them however you'd like and create even like a fizzy, carbonated kombucha, or you can add like, different red powders that have maybe strawberries or blueberries or raspberries, something like that, to really give it that like, delicious kind of like Kool-Aid taste that we all had as kids that isn't so healthy, but kind of recreate that in a healthy way that actually benefits the gut. Additionally, what's nice about sourdough bread in particular is that a lot of, treats and baked goods and things are very unhealthy. The flour is, fast and cheaply made. There's a lot of sugar, additives, things like that. The nice aspect about sourdough is you can utilize it for many different things. So we've created, like, for example, sourdough cookies or sourdough tortillas or sourdough chips, things that can replace sort of traditional, more unhealthy foods and have actually a little bit of health benefit, as opposed to something that creates inflammation in the gut or, potentially leaky gut or something like that. So it's all about being creative, and we've been as creative as we can to, kind of position that to help people enjoy it as well.
No, that's cool. And do you have recipes that people can find and try and download, or what's the best way for people to kind of get started and learn more about how to make fermented things? And how long does it really take?
Yeah, great question. So it takes, and it depends on the recipe, but for example, like kombucha and water kefir are actually pretty quick and easy to do. And the nice thing about those is you can kind of just keep them going. So once you get them going, the work is up front and it still doesn't take nothing but like 15, 20 minutes. But then once you get it going, you can continue to feed like the SCOBY with kombucha, for example, or with the water kefir, the grains and the sugar, and that ferments that sugar and creates those probiotics. So it doesn't take a lot of time. With the drinks, the foods take a little bit more time. The sourdough definitely takes more time. The vegetables definitely take more time. But it's a process, and once you get into it, it is really rewarding because you're also saving money. So instead of buying sourdough at the store, you're saving money. Instead of buying sauerkraut, you're saving money. Kombucha is a huge money saver. So you get a lot more probiotics for a lot cheaper cost, and you can kind of flavor them how you'd like. So basically the fermentation method is it's a digital download course, so it's instant access. So I'm sure you can link that up below this video or below the interview, access to all the sourdough bread recipes, all the sourdough treats, which are healthier treats, kombucha, water kefir, pickles, salsa, and many other recipes. And there's also things like different like discount codes and just specific like step-by-step instructions. So it speeds it up, you save money, and it's all like in one place. So you don't need to, go searching or finding or know if this will work with that or whatever, because there's a lot of logistics to it. So we've just simplified it and streamlined it for everyone.
And then people that may or may not have tried this before, do you have to get a starter kit, or are there certain ingredients you need to buy or find, or do most people have the things already in their house to try something the first time? Or?
Great question. So with some recipes, yes. So with sourdough, it's a little bit more complex. You need more, like you need a starter culture, things like that. Kombucha as well, you need something called a SCOBY, which stands for symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast. So there are specific things that are needed for each specific recipe. However, like sauerkraut and kimchi, pickles, these are very simple. Glass, water, salt, jar. There's very simple things, ways to ferment that anyone can ferment, and you're just creating these probiotics from scratch, and it can continue to grow. Additionally, one thing I'd like to add is I know you have a probiotic at Hello Health, and what's cool is you can actually not only take your probiotics for gut health, but you can actually multiply them in yogurt. So you can get like basically a coconut base, and you can multiply your probiotics and create your own yogurt from scratch, which is really nice. So that's kind of nice because then it allows you to use your probiotic, supplements in different ways.
Then do you have a favorite place that you like to buy SCOBYs?
That's a great question. There's a company called Kombucha Camp with a K. I believe they're based out of San Diego, and they are a great resource for all of these types of kombucha kits and things. Yeah, all the tools you need.
And then do you have to use it only one time, or can you use it over and over again when you're?
Great question. You can use the SCOBY over and over again, and you can actually, if you want to as well, take a part of the SCOBY out and replicate it somewhere else, or give it to a friend or family member, and then they can start to make kombucha from that SCOBY as well. So it continues to live on and multiply and create probiotics for everyone, which is a great deal.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah. It's like seed in the soil. It just keeps growing.
So
not genetically modified, of course.
Yes. And then do you tend to have people that contact you about certain autoimmune things that might be happening with their gut, or any particular health and wellness stories or journeys that have taken you down some interesting roads that fermentation you found has really been beneficial?
So with this in particular, this fermentation method is a brand new training. So we haven't had anyone yet, but I have in the past within my own health coaching, just had clients that I've worked with that have dealt with autoimmune, leaky gut. And, that's a really big thing. And a lot of people have autoimmune related conditions that stem from leaky gut, that stem from, something harming the integrity of the gut lining. So fermented foods and drinks are a great way to help repair that. But also I definitely recommend essential amino acids, making sure to get those essential amino acids in your diet and or supplement routine as the gut lining needs that. Colostrum is amazing. If people are not breastfed, they do not have the colostrum that helps to actually build the structure of the gut lining. So that's beneficial. And aloe vera is great. Sangre de grotto, coming back to that again, the Amazonian tree sap that helps collagen building blocks bind and build more effectively. That's also a tremendous tool. So just kind of really focusing on the integrity of the gut lining and strengthening it so that food particles don't leak into the bloodstream and confuse the immune system is a really effective strategy. And there's a lot of things that support the gut lining, but there's also a lot of things that damage the gut lining. So it's good to know the distinction between the two and make wise choices.
Well, and from what I've found in my own experience, as well as talking with other doctors and experts, it truly affects everyone. We all have some leaky gut, and we all need to constantly be working on making sure that we're putting the right things in our body to keep it strong. And then detox, that was kind of an interesting thing that some doctors have really taught me about. Is it's not only important to put the good stuff in, but you've got to make sure that you're putting things in that help you pull the bad things out of your body naturally through different types of plants. And so I don't know if you've done any work in that, but I think that's a really interesting part of that too.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Well, I think too, supporting your gut health is so important. Fermented foods, all of these things are so important because fats and proteins are very difficult to metabolize compared to like sugar, right? Like glucose. So if we don't have the proper and necessary things in our gut to break down and metabolize fat and protein properly, this can create, blockages. This can create, unhealthy metabolic processes in the body, cellular waste, all of these different types of things. And then this has a whole host of downstream effects. So yeah, detoxification is huge. And also just really beyond that too, supporting the drainage pathways, right? Like, so your liver, your kidneys, the lymphatic system. I remember years ago, I gave my ex-girlfriend a pill for, I think it was circulatory health. And I gave it to her, and like 10, 15 minutes later, she's like, oh, I have a headache. And I'm like, oh, geez, I just circulated things that were supposed to be removed as the wrong order. And it was like a slight lesson. And I was like, okay, that's, I'm going to store that and remember that because, you could take something that's great for your circulation and it's clearly working. But if the liver isn't working properly, the kidneys aren't filtering properly, or the lymphatic system isn't working properly, then, it's just going to recirculate toxins. So it's important, to support detoxification, but also the drainage pathways so that doesn't get plugged up at the bottom. You kind of fully remove and release it from the body. And there's so many practices that are good for that.
Do you have any favorite ones that you want to share?
Oh gosh, how much time do you have? I really enjoy, I think a few of the most important, even backing up from nutrition, are elemental. So what I mean by that is like hot, cold therapies. So doing, sauna, but also cold exposure. So you're creating, blood flow, dilation within the blood. That's huge. And the lymphatic system. So you're moving the lymphatic system and blood with, hot or cold, any hot, cold therapy. Could be sauna, could be, hot tub, preferably without chlorine. That's a whole other story. And then, like a cold bath or even like a cold dip in a lake or something like that. It's so beneficial for the body. Also light. Light is such a huge component for health, and it's very often overlooked. Our body and the systems in our body are light dependent. Our circadian biology, circadian rhythms are dependent on light. So, having that dialed in is tremendously important, because if we have bright lights on at night, we're confusing our body, and our body doesn't produce melatonin, which is a powerful antioxidant, sleep hormone, does so much more than sleep. And that helps to, facilitate so many bodily processes and recovery and detoxification during sleep. Like, in our brain, we have plaque, right? So when we sleep, our lymphatic system is removing this plaque. And if our sleep cycles are not, properly processing, our brain isn't removing that plaque, and that buildup can lead to dementia, Alzheimer's, neurodegenerative diseases. So there's so many processes that go on during sleep as a part of this, and the higher quality sleep we can get, the more impactful our body will remove these things for sure.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Any last things that you want to be sure that we cover in terms of the gut, the connection with the brain? We've also seen that there's research around depression, anxiety when you've got a healthy gut, you've got less neurotransmitter issues. Anything else that you want to share, or how can people find out more about you?
Yeah, sure. I think one last thing, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I think, oftentimes we just think of our certain portions of our health within those categories. So this is my physical health. This is my mental health. This is my emotional health. This is my spiritual health. And we kind of almost compartmentalize them, but really there's interplay between all of these systems in the body. And, we still don't even fully know the connection of how our emotional health affects our physical health and vice versa. So I think it's important to, support your gut health, but also understand, the impact it does have on our brain health. Our gut is called our second brain for a reason, but really it could be our first brain, because when we have a gut feeling, we have a sort of a visceral response to a decision-making process. So it's intuitive based. It's, it sort of taps into, ancient wisdom to some degree. So I think it's really important to understand that there's a strong connection and correlation. So I'm so glad you brought that up, and to understand, that we have to support both our mental health as well. So getting outside and moving, getting fresh air, getting sunshine, getting vitamin D, doing these different things is going to put our mental and emotional state into a better state so that we make better decisions in the kitchen as well. And there's, so much connection between all these. But that's really it. I'd love to leave everyone with, just sharing that, you have so much power and control over your health. I think oftentimes we live in a world where we have so many messages coming at us that are, telling us we can't do this, or we're not able, or whatever it may be. And I think that if we understand the true power that we have within our biology and just making smart decisions, we can really do anything. I've seen and heard so many incredible transformative stories, as I'm sure you have as well. And it's so encouraging to hear these stories and understand, the power that we have. So take care of your health, value your health. And I highly recommend and encourage, fermented living foods and drinks. And, once again, I'm sure you'll put a link in the description for them to make it really easy. So incorporate that in your life, and I think you'll see a big difference.
And then just one last thing, in terms of nutrition outside of fermentation, do you live by a certain type of diet? Do you find that some are better for the gut than others?
Great question. I've experimented a little too much, I would say. I actually lived in Costa Rica for a while, and while I was there, I inadvertently became a fruitarian, not by choice, but because the fruit was so delicious. And then I realized one day, wait a minute, I'm basically a fruitarian. So I've been a vegan, I've been a vegetarian, I've been a fruitarian. Now I consider myself a flexitarian. And what that means is that I firmly believe everyone's biology is different. There's so many factors, right? Like genetic factors, your blood type, the environment you grew up in, and how that impacted your gut health, whether you were breastfed or not. There's so many variables that could affect metabolic and gut health. So I don't think there's one size fits all. I just believe in a whole foods diet that is nutrition rich and has a very good balance of both micronutrients and macronutrients, so that we're getting what we need, and, adjusting if need be, like, whether it's a biofeedback test, blood work, or anything, hormone panel, whatever it may be. Maybe you see some of your markers are off or a little bit interesting. You can kind of adjust that moving forward. But I don't really think there's one diet for all. I think most diet books, unfortunately, are more like, getting people into these corners where then they limit their, choices of food, and then they eventually end up missing out on nutrients. And there's actually a lot of research to back that now. I mean, there's literally research that shows specific diet types will have specific nutritional deficiencies over time, as the years prolong and as those deficiencies add up. So I don't really subscribe to any particular diet type.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And, I find people, when they're very restrictive, it seems like they tend to move from one restrictive thing to another, because they do find these challenges with each one. And, my dad used to always say, everything in moderation, Pamela. And I was like, gosh, stop saying that, because he said it all the time. And I was like, but it's true.
Yeah.
Everything in moderation.
Yeah. And yeah, it's so true, because you add to it like metabolic flexibility. If you're eating one food group or a very narrow group of foods over time, your metabolic flexibility decreases, because your body isn't as able to metabolically process a wide array of foods. So that plays a role. And then you have also just you actually do want to sort of test your metabolism, because it revs up, like that metabolic fire. So you do want to have like fats, proteins, like, it's like you want to have these things that are more difficult and challenging, but you also want fruits for cleansing and vegetables for building and roots for building. And so there's so much value in each of those food groups, as long as it's closer to nature and, more whole food based, you're going to be fine.
Yeah. Less processed, I think, is probably the way to go. So
Exactly.
Well,
Exactly.
thank you, David. It's truly been a pleasure to connect with you. And I'm sure everyone will be thrilled to listen and learn more about you.
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm looking forward to seeing it published, and please send it my way so I can share it.
Of course. Take care.
That's it for this episode of Encouraging Wellness. We hope this serves as an eye-opener to you on new ways to approach your health and wellness. By learning both unique and the best alternative wellness and healing methods, you can live your best life. Listen to more of our episodes at www.hello.health. Be sure to subscribe to the show and leave a rating. Together, let us work towards unlocking you and your family's best self. Thank you for listening. See you on the next one.